The morning sun had hardly rolled over the wide Montana plains when rancher Colton Hayes spotted the trail of blood stretching across the wheatgrass like a warning from the land itself. Montana had its secrets, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to find. Riding his old chestnut mare closer to his barn, he noticed the door slightly ajar, something he never left unattended. The horses inside were restless, stomping and snorting as if a ghost had passed through. Colton dismounted slowly. Hand resting on the grip of the revolver, he carried more from habit than confidence. His boots crushed the frosted earth as he stepped inside. The dim wooden barn glowed faintly from the lantern he kept hooked high on the post. But today a second lantern flickered on the ground, a sign someone else had been there before him. And then he froze. 7 boys, all roughly between 6 and 12, huddled in a tight circle around a woman lying on the hay. The boys had identical blue eyes, tearful and swollen, their clothes dusty, ripped, and far too thin for the cold. Their faces were streaked with dirt and dried tears, and they stared at him with a mixture of fear, desperation, and a strange kind of familiar pain. Colton raised his lantern higher, and the sight of the woman sent a shock straight through his chest. She was bleeding from her side, the red soaking through her gray dress and pooling into the straw beneath her. Her skin was ghost pale, her breath shallow and trembling. The oldest boy stepped forward as if shielding the woman, trembling but brave. "Sir, please, don't make us leave. She needs help." His voice cracked raw with exhaustion. Colton crouched down, keeping his voice soft, trying not to frighten them further. "What happened here?" The boys exchanged looks, fear drawing their shoulders tight. Finally, the eldest spoke again. "People are looking for us. Bad people. They hurt Mama. They're gonna come back." The words cracked like ice in the air. Colton's jaw tightened. He'd seen violence, lawlessness, and cruelty on the land before, but nothing like this. "You boys came a long way?" he asked quietly. The middle child nodded. 4 days. We've been hiding at night, walking during the day. Mama said we had to reach someone good. She said you lived far enough out, that maybe you'd help." Colton felt something twist inside him. He wasn't known for being warm-hearted. Life on the range had carved the softness out of him. But these children, thin, trembling, loyal to a woman who was slipping away, pulled, something buried deep inside him awake. The woman stirred weakly, whispering something unintelligible. Colton lowered himself beside her, carefully pulling aside the blanket they had wrapped around her. The wound was deep, likely from a knife or sharp metal, and dangerously infected. She needed real medical attention, something. A remote ranch hours from the nearest town. Shouldn't attempt, but moving her now could kill her. He looked at the boys. "What is your name?" he asked the eldest. "Samuel," he whispered. "Samuel," Colton said, locking eyes with him. "I ain't about to let your mama die in my barn. But I need to know who did this." Samuel swallowed hard. "Men from Red Valley. Mama worked at the old mill. She saw something she shouldn't have. She told them she wouldn't be quiet about it. They hurt her and said they'd take us if she made trouble." Colton felt cold crawl down his spine. Red Valley wasn't just a place. It was the heart of Montana's darkest business. Men who didn't bother with laws. Men you didn't cross unless you were signing your name in blood. And now they were involved. Colton took a long breath. "You boys stay put. I've got medicine in the house." But as he turned toward the door, a distant rumble vibrated through the soil, hoofbeats, multiple, fast. Samuel gasped. "They found us." Colton's instincts fired instantly. He blew out the hanging lantern, grabbing the barn door and pulling it shut, while signaling the boys to stay silent. With his back against the wood, he watched through the crack as 3 riders appeared on the horizon, cutting across his field with confidence. Too much confidence. They slowed near the ranch house, scanning the property. Colton clenched his jaw. If he confronted them now, the boys were as good as lost. If he stayed quiet, those men might break into the barn on a hunch. He eased the barn door lock into place, motions slow and steady. Behind him, the boys clung to their mother, their breaths shallow and rapid from fear. The youngest silently cried into her sleeve. Colton knelt beside them. "Listen to me," he whispered, voice low and steady. Whatever happens, you do not make a sound. Not one, I'm going out there. I'll lead them away. Samuel's eyes widened with panic. They'll kill you. Let them try, Colton muttered, grabbing his coat and hat. Nobody hurts children on my land. He stepped outside just as the riders spotted movement and turned toward him. Colton squared his shoulders, lantern in one hand, the other hovering near the gun at his hip. The men rode closer until their faces, cold, smug and familiar with violence, came into view. The leader smirked. Morning. Hayes, didn't expect to see you up so early. Colton returned the stare with ice. Morning. The men exchanged glances. The tension hung thick, humming in the air like a storm about to break. And in that moment, as the sun rose behind him, Colton Hayes made a decision that would shake all of Montana. The silence between Colton and the riders stretched thin, like a tight rope waiting to snap. The cold Montana wind brushing between them as if urging someone to make the first move. The man leading the trio, a broad-shouldered brute named Riker, shifted in his saddle, the corners of his lips pulling upward in a menacing sneer. Colton knew Riker's type, men who believed fear was the only language worth speaking. But Colton had lived long enough under the weight of solitude and loss that fear had become something distant, something he had learned to shake off like dust from his boots. Riker's horse pawed the ground impatiently, creating little bursts of frost. Look, Hayes, Riker drawled, leaning forward as if delivering a friendly piece of advice. We can make this easy. You tell us what we want to know, and we leave without breaking anything. His eyes flicked toward the barn again. We're tracking a woman. Hurt real bad. She's traveling with kids, lots of them. Ever seen a pack like that? Colton didn't blink. Can't say I have. Riker's smirk thinned, the friendliness in his tone evaporating. Funny thing is, Colton, someone saw kids heading through your property last night. The words hit like a stone, dropped into water, quiet, soft, but spreading ripples in every direction. Inside the barn, the children had surely heard the voices. Colton pictured them trembling, holding their breath, clutching their mother's hands while listening for the sound of boots, marching toward them. His heart tightened. Riker nodded at his men. Search the barn. Colton's hand shot to his revolver, drawing it in a thunderclap of steel. The horses reared, the men recoiling in shock as the barrel leveled straight at Riker's chest. That barn, Colton growled, holds my winter feed, my equipment, and the only part of this ranch still worth a damn. Nobody touches it without my say. Riker's grin returned, cruel and mocking. You going to shoot all three of us, Hayes? If that's what the math demands, Colton replied. For a moment, nobody moved. Even the horses stilled, the cold air thick with danger. Then Riker barked a laugh, harsh, humorless. You're an old fool. Hayes, you don't know who you're protecting. Colton tilted his head. Don't need to. I just know who I'm not helping. Riker's eyes hardened. Those kids aren't normal runaways. Their mother stole from people you don't want to cross. Those kids? They're not hers, not by blood. Colton blinked. What are you talking about? Riker smirked. Trafficked, bought, taken, whatever word makes you feel better. That woman's been collecting children like cattle. You're sheltering a criminal. Hayes. The claim hit Colton like a punch to the ribs, but instinct immediately rejected it. The fear in the boys' eyes, the way they clung to the woman, the way she whispered their names even while bleeding out, all of it painted a picture Riker's words couldn't stain. Colton shook his head. You're lying. Am I? Riker leaned forward. Then why don't you bring them out and let us sort it out? Colton's silence was answer enough. Riker gestured to his men again. Search now, but the two riders hesitated. Colton's grip on his gun was too steady, his stance too sure. Before any of them could react, the barn door behind Colton creaked open just a hair, and Samuel's voice, trembling and small, broke the deadly stillness. He's telling the truth. Yes, sir. Colton closed his eyes for a split second, fear slicing through him. Samuel stepped out, hands raised, face pale but determined. They're lying about our mother. She saved us. Saved all 7 of us. The men from Red Valley took kids from families that couldn't pay debts. Mama, she worked for them until she found out. When she tried to stop them, they tried to... His voice broke. She risked everything to get us away, Riker chuckled darkly. Touching! Colton's revolver tightened in his grip. Boy, Colton hissed under his breath. Get back inside. But Samuel stood tall, shaking, terrified but brave. If they take us, they'll kill her. And us, Riker rolled his eyes. Enough of this. He drew his own gun. The world snapped into chaos. Colton fired first, kicking up dirt at Riker's boots, forcing him to back his horse up. The other two men lunged to flank him. But Colton turned and shouted, Samuel, run! The boy scrambled back inside, slamming the barn door shut. Colton ducked behind a trough as bullets whizzed past, splintering wood. Riker shouted, burn the barn! Smoke them out! Colton felt ice crawl through his veins. He knew these men. Violence was easy for them. Burning children alive wouldn't make them blink. He had seconds, maybe less, to act. With a guttural roar that came from a place he didn't know still existed inside him. Colton charged toward the nearest rider, grabbing the man's saddle and dragging him to the ground. They wrestled in the frost, fists cracking against bone. Colton slammed the man's head into the dirt until he stopped moving. The second rider charged with a knife, but Colton swung the lantern into his face, shattering it, flames licking up the man's coat. He screamed, tumbling from his horse. Riker fired again, grazing Colton's shoulder, but the rancher stayed on his feet through sheer will. You're dead, Hayes, Riker shouted. You and those brats! Colton raised his revolver, and Riker's horse jolted, throwing him off balance. Samuel, little Samuel, had emerged again, slamming a pitchfork into the horse's flank from behind the barn door. Riker toppled hard, the gun skidding across the ground. Colton seized the moment, pinning Riker down with his boot and grabbing him by the collar. You'll never touch them again, Colton snarled. Riker spat in his face. The whole valley will come. For them, Colton tightened his grip. Then the whole valley will deal with me. He tied Riker and the others up, tossing their weapons into the field. Then he ran into the barn. The woman was barely conscious, breath faint, voice thin as thread. My boy's safe. Colton knelt beside her, taking her cold hand. Because of you. And them. Tears formed at the corners of her eyes. Don't. Let them be taken. Never, Colton whispered. He loaded her onto a wagon, wrapped the boys in blankets, and set off toward town at full speed. Word spread quickly. Of the rancher who stood against the darkest men in Montana. Of the 7 boys who trusted a stranger. Of a mother who sacrificed everything. And as the law closed in on the Red Valley Ring, as people from across the state rallied to protect the children, Montana would never forget the rancher who shook its very foundation. And neither would the boys who finally found a home. If you enjoyed this gripping story, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because more powerful, true-inspired stories like this are coming your way. Your support means everything, and it helps the channel grow so we can bring you even more heart-shaking tales